Today on Spotlight, I am ugly and I am proud. Hey everybody, how's it going? I have a first impression spotlight ready to go here. I'm bringing the series back after over on the Patreon I started asking for first requests, and today we're going to be starting with a first impressions on the game. It's just called Ugly, which makes it a little weird to search up on Google because you get a lot of unrelated picks concerning things that have nothing to do with this game. But I guess it's to be expected. This game is just coming out on PC and Xbox. It's coming out today at the time of this video going up, September 14th. Nintendo Switch users will have to wait a couple more days. September 18th. Silly Nintendo fans thinking they're privileged like the rest of us. What do you toy? But no, I want to take a quick moment just to thank Team Ugly and Graffiti Games for supplying me with the code to talk about this game because, you know, I like doing this stuff on occasion when I'm not whittling the hours away with Final Fantasy XIV Savage Progression, or currently working on the next Versus video, which will also be ready to go soon in just a couple more days. I appreciate your patience. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe for this channel, it's been quite a spell since I've done a dedicated puzzle game for this channel. The only time I could think of is when I did like a lot of those Versus videos for like those indie games, like the indie showcase and all that, right? And so I'm playing this and I'm immediately like warped back to that time frame. I was like, oh, I'm kind of out of my element here because, you know, I love my platformers, my action adventures, my RPGs, and everything in between that. But puzzle games, well, that's kind of a harder sell for me because, well, I don't find myself very smart, right? Like I am borderline caveman. I look like a caveman, but still variety is the spice of life. And that's why I even consider doing this because you never know. I might have a new like game of the year contender here or something that I will really enjoy playing in the long run. With that said, what do we have in store here for this game that's just called Ugly? I wanted to start there actually. The game is just called Ugly. It's a very simple title and it's supposed to like reflect on, I believe, the character, the main protagonist, outwardly appearance. And I wanted to ask you guys real quick, look at this dude. Do you consider that ugly? Like, if anything, it looks like a cute little Mr. Potato Head, like Funko Pop, right? It's got the Squidward nose, it's got the beady eyes, sure. Like, you believe that this character has been places, has seen things, and is going through things even right now. I mean, my God, like the first thing he does when he gets up is he takes a drink from his flask. And your means of resetting the room when you're trying to complete a puzzle is you just getting drunk and passing out. And it's like, this is getting a little too real for me. But ugly? No, not really ugly. I think he's more cute than anything, but it doesn't really matter what I think. It's more about what this character thinks and what they keep internalized like mentally because of their rough upbringing, which you will no doubt start learning as soon as you start playing the game. But the game kicks off with this magical mirror shard falling, it looks like from the sky, and it lands next to the character. And the shape of the mirror shard kind of threw me off for a bit because like all it needs to do is add a few lines to it and it's the cool S from like the 90s. I love the cool S. But with this mirror shard, as you will soon see, you are able to create a mirror image of yourself that does what you do. Like it moves when you move, it ascends or descends as you ascend or descend. But it also depends on the angle of where you place the mirror shard. So because there are going to be a lot of times where instead of just like activating the mirror shard willy-nilly, you may want to deliberately like place it on the floor so that as you go down, your mirror shard goes up. And this is the entire game. You are using the mirror shard to bypass obstacles, to find keys, to unlock doors, to open up more rooms of this large ass castle that I can only assume is your humble abode. I was like, shitty childhood or not, this person is living the good life, but is it really worth it when you consider like the mental hellhole that was this guy's existence growing up? And my God, that is all over the place. So Ugly is one of those games that it's very minimalist. It doesn't really have dialogue. It doesn't really have conversation. It's just a lot of environmental storytelling. And there's a lot of background details all over the place in this game. It's frankly amazing. Like every 3 or 4 steps you take, there is something happening in the background that, well, you know, just for maybe some laughs, maybe got a little orangutan in the cage that laughs at you if you mess up a puzzle, or it could be a lot of things that just, you know, start to add up to the bigger picture. And that bigger picture is that something's wrong, but you're not entirely sure what that is yet because, I mean, it could be any number of things. It's like, is this castle really abandoned? I mean, I can hear some activity going through the door, but is it actually happening? Or am I wasting my time just trying to get something that doesn't really exist? Like, who is this guy? What is this place? Why are there scorpions all over the place? Is that a purple Ku Klux Klan robe? What's the real story trying to be told here? That mystery, that intrigue permeates through the whole adventure, and I believe it is the main driving force of completing puzzles and whatnot and like proceeding along. And almost immediately, you'll find out that a big factor of this dude's problems growing up stems from their father, who at first I thought was like, dude, that's just the protagonist from Ghost Trick, Phantom Detective. Their outfits and hairstyles so similar. Throughout the game, outside of like the background environments, which paint a picture of its own, you can find these memories that you can unlock. But when you place your main character and your mirror image at these specific coordinates on the screen, and you have this moment of recollection about how your father was just an absolute bastard of a human being. And I'm talking about like a dude that already says that you're ugly as sin and need to like wear a mask to blend in with society, or he's thinking of hitting on the maid, cheating on his wife. And there was one memory where it was just your father, like, I'm assuming either fucking your mom or fucking the maid. It caught me. I was like, what the fuck? I wasn't ready for that, but it's just there. Dude burns your fucking dog down. Like, my God, clearly this game wants to paint a picture that your dad is just bad news. It might even go beyond that, because there are rooms in this castle that like insinuate like cult-like activity. Is my dad Satan? Is he the devil? Is he some sort of satanic deity? What there's a room that has my dad like nailed to the cross like Jesus, but it's like, wait, so is he Jesus, or is he the devil? Did I do that? Did someone else do that? Why is the scorpion acting as a pastor reading from the scriptures? I don't know. But it did make me curious, because one thing that I did say to myself is that I think they're laying it on too thick that my dad is just this irreprehensible being. I mean, sometimes it could be just that, like you call a spade a spade. No, your dad is just that much of a jerk. But because of how much they lay it on, and it seems to be like the only thing that really matters when it comes to memory collecting and all that, I wonder, because there's no dialogue whatsoever, because we're only getting essentially one side of the story, like I wonder, are things what they really seem? And that in itself, I find a good driving force just to keep playing the game. Again, the detail is pretty damn good in this game all over, like the background environments, the interactable objects, the animation of your main character. A couple of boss fights that you run into are no doubt the best thing about this game. Like, I love the way these guys move. I love just watching them in action, even if I am trying to like fight for my life, you know. But repeatedly, like my main driving force of continuing to play this game was just to see, all right, so where's the story going exactly? Like, I know they want me to think that my dad is like the end all be all cause of all my problems, but is that the full picture here? Oh, I'm gonna have to keep using the mirror shard and find my way through this like labyrinth castle that's full of so many things that until I found this mirror shard, like how the hell was I supposed to traverse this area anyway? But the puzzle design in this game ended up being genuinely great for me, and I was a little nervous at first because, you see, to go back to what I said about me thinking that I'm just an absolute caveman, when I'm playing a puzzle game for myself, review or otherwise, I usually have the benefit of the game being like weeks, if not months, years after it's been released. So if I'm truly stumped by something, I can always just look up a guide and, you know, brute force my way through it just for the sake of completing the story. But this is not only early access, I also have no access to any sort of guides whatsoever. So I had to do everything myself. So it's like, oh boy, this is gonna be a time. Why did I agree to this? But no, with a couple of exceptions, like some solutions to some puzzles made me feel really dumb, but I was able to logic my way through a lot of these solutions just by thinking of like, okay, if I put my character here and then summon the clone here and then do this and do that, then yeah, there we go. Now we're making bacon. The game rewarded me with that feeling of satisfaction throughout the entire campaign. And it just like, it always feels good, right? You know, to show that, no, I don't need a guide. I am more than capable of doing this myself. Sometimes it sucks, but you know, sometimes it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to make your brain itch. And I want to say I was able to get through most of the puzzles without having to rely on the game's hint system. It wasn't until like the game's, I think, 4th or 5th world where I finally enabled it, because these dimensional block shifting puzzles here were sent like, oh Lord, I can't deal with this. This is too much for my minuscule brain. But the other couple of gimmicks throughout the castle were pretty cool too. Like one of the earlier worlds, there is this pink goop all over the castle walls and stuff like that. And what this essentially means is that if you send your mirror image through it, you can't like switch places with them until they're in the clear, essentially. And so you have to find a way to like finagle your way around it and find an opening so that you yourself can like switch places with your copy and then get the key that way. Because that's the big thing about this game. It's not just something like a mirror image of yourself, but with a button press, you can switch places between yourself and the mirror image. It was a little like cumbersome at first for me because you have to hit a button to like summon the mirror image, and then you hit the X button on like the Xbox controller anyway to switch between them. And constantly, oh my God, like especially in the first hour of the game, I was repeatedly like accidentally despawning the mirror image when I meant to switch, or I switch when I meant to despawn the mirror image, and I completely screwed the puzzle up, you know. But thankfully, if you like screw up for whatever reason, the game does have a reset button where you essentially just reset the room. And it's the funniest thing because you just take a whiff of your flask and you collapse. And I was like, this is getting a little too real. But I'm grateful for it anyway, because I did need to use it a couple of times just to like reevaluate the room and get myself out of this bind. To go back to the other gimmicks, I think like the coolest one for me was like this crystal flooring or crystal walls that when your clone comes in contact with them, they're halted by it, which means that you can artfully manipulate them in a way that you couldn't if they were just replicating your movements one-to-one. And these end up being real big brain teasers for me. Like I think I got stuck the most in these challenges itself, but man, like when I finally got the solution to it, accidental or otherwise, I felt like an absolute god. The further you get into the game, the more they just start throwing all this stuff together, like combinations of previous gimmicks or like a super emphasis on one in particular. By the beginning of the fourth world, I want to say the game just becomes Portal as well. With the mirror shard, you can, if you set it in the right spot, you can essentially like manipulate your velocity to launch your character high up into the air and get to those hard to reach places. You might even find a secret here or there. But again, I'm really happy that none of the gimmicks in this game like were like overly cumbersome or frustrating. Like the only exception, again, to go back to like the fifth world, like the block shifting stuff, it was like, oh, I was not the biggest fan of this one, but every other gimmick beforehand, including with the boss fights, was simply dazzling to the eyes. And I'm more than happy to spend the time to get to experience this, because this is something I want to, you know, do for myself more often later down the road. I'm branching out of my comfort zone, but thankfully I found this puzzle game pretty comfortable. It's got great puzzle design, and those puzzles I feel anybody, because again, if I can do it, you can do it. The environments are bursting with detail. It's very colorful. Your character animates very well. Like I never get tired of him just whipping out that flask and just going to town. But again, the boss encounters, when you eventually get to them, they're like the pinnacle of this art style. They look so good. And it's with the animation and the environments and presentation that they're using to tell this narrative about this dude who was clearly repressing a lot of bad memories about his upbringing. And it could just be because, you know, he was called ugly a whole bunch as a kid. It was because his father was an absolute douchebag of a human being. There's a lot of factors to consider this, but I also think it's very clear that there's more to this picture than meets the eye, but it's up to you to continue playing to see what's really going on here. Like, it's not shit your pants horror, so you don't have to worry about like jump scares or anything like that, right? But it is very psychological. A psychological thriller, I would think, is a good way of categorizing it. Things are going to get pretty intense at points for a game. It's like, man, I just wanted to make mirror copies of myself and like do more Portal stuff. Why am I being hounded by animated Pepto-Bismol? But I think you have something to look forward to here if you decide to pick it up. And with that said, if you are all curious, you can find a link to the Steam page down in the description below. Again, the game just came out on PC on both Steam and Epic Games, and on Xbox today, September 14th. Nintendo Switch users will have to wait until September 18th to sink their teeth into it. And if you decide to pick up the game for yourself, I hope you do enjoy your time. And I want to once again thank Team Ugly and Graffiti Games for supplying me with the code. I had a lot of fun with this one, more than happy to do it again with some other game later down the road. It was a good time, but it really makes me want to drink. Anyway, I hope to see you guys in the next Versus video or in the Spotlight. I appreciate your time and company as always. Thank you all for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night and take care.